Not every classic needs a remake because it was ahead of its time. Some deserve another chance simply because they remind players how much fun games can be when the ideas are easy to understand. I think that's always been the magic of Bomberman games. You drop a bomb, find a safe place to stand, clear a path, and slowly turn a simple maze into some complete chaos. The rules couldn't be much simpler than that, in fact, but somehow every match becomes different from the last one. Maybe that's why people still talk about the older games today, and why the idea of a full remake of Bomberman 2, for example, continues to sound so freaking good. So first of all, there is not an official remake in development. Konami hasn't announced a remake of Bomberman 2. There's a ton of rumors around the internet. So far, this remains something fans continue hoping for rather than a confirmed project. But even so, the franchise has remained active over the past few years, proving there's still plenty of interest in one of gaming's oldest and most recognizable characters. That alone makes the possibility feel much more believable than it did like a few years ago. So if a remake ever happens, the first rule should be very simple, which is just don't make it complicated. The original games worked because anyone could understand them within a minute. You didn't need some long tutorials or just dozens of different mechanics to learn before the fun started. Every match began with almost nothing. A few walls, a few bombs, and 4 players trying to outsmart one another. Then, little by little, the arena changed, paths opened, power-ups appeared, explosions became larger. Suddenly, one wrong step was enough to end the round. That simple rhythm has survived for decades because it doesn't need fixing. In fact, what deserves attention is everything happening around those mechanics. Imagine starting inside a colorful castle courtyard filled with moving gears and waterfalls and tiny little details that make the world feel alive now. Birds flying overhead, wild banners move gently with the wind, and somewhere in the distance there are fireworks celebrate another tournament about to begin. None of these actually changes the gameplay, but it immediately gives every arena its own personality before the first bomb is ever placed. Every stage should feel memorable for a different reason. Think about it. One arena takes place inside an old pirate harbor while wooden bridges slowly collapse after some repeated explosions or whatever. Another then sits high above the clouds with giant airships floating quietly in the background while sunlight shines through enormous towers or whatever. A frozen mountain slowly becoming more dangerous as sections of ice crack apart during the longer matches, or even a peaceful little Japanese garden transforming into some complete chaos once walls begin disappearing and players forced into smaller and smaller places. Every location tells its own story without interrupting the action. Movement obviously should remain incredibly smooth because that's what keeps Bomberman satisfying. Running through the paths, the narrow little places, placing bombs in the last possible second, skipping your own explosions, trapping opponents inside clever chain reactions should all feel completely natural, even more addictive or so. Players should never lose because the controls fail them. Every victory and every mistake should come from some quick thinking instead. Power-ups of course deserve just as much care. Finding a larger explosion, extra bombs, faster movements, and the ability to kick bombs across the arena, in fact, has always been one of the most exciting parts of every match in the series. A remake could expand that variety without losing the simple balance that made the original so addictive. New abilities to create interesting decisions instead of overwhelming players with endless systems or whatever. The best Bomberman matches have always been easy to understand while still leaving plenty of room for just skill. The enemies in the single-player campaign could also become much more expressive. Instead of simply walking predictable patterns, different creatures react to the player's actions in their own way. Some become aggressive after hearing nearby explosions, others try avoiding danger altogether before suddenly attacking when the path is clear, and boss fights could also become much more creative, asking players to solve little puzzles here and there while staying true to the classic bomb-based gameplay that defines the series. Yeah, one thing that should never disappear, in fact, is a local multiplayer. Few games there have created as many unforgettable moments between friends as Bomberman. Everyone laughs until someone accidentally traps themselves inside their own explosion. Temporary alliances form for just a few seconds before disappearing the moment a power-up appears nearby. One player quietly survives while everybody else are trying to eliminate one another. Every round creates another story because nobody can predict exactly how the final few seconds will play out. Online play could finally bring that same excitement to a much larger audience. Fast matchmaking, private rooms, tournaments, seasonal events, and creative custom game options would all help keep the community active without changing the classic formula. The gameplay already works. Modern online features simply make it easier for more people to enjoy it together. And obviously visually the remake doesn't need to chase realism. Bomberman has always looked its best when it embraces the bright colors, the expressive animations, the cheerful little environments. Characters should be full of personality instead. Explosions should feel satisfying without filling the screen with unnecessary 100 different effects. And every world should look inviting enough that players immediately want to see the next one. A timeless art style will always get better than trying to look realistic. The original games worked because anyone could understand them within a minute. You didn't need some long tutorials or just dozens of different mechanics to learn before the fun started. Every match began with almost nothing. A few walls, a few bombs, and 4 players trying to outsmart one another. Then, little by little, the arena changed, paths opened, power-ups appeared, explosions became larger. Suddenly, one wrong step was enough to end the round. That simple rhythm has survived for decades because it doesn't need fixing. In fact, what deserves attention is everything happening around those mechanics. The music also deserves the same approach. The melodies, the battle themes, the stage musics have always been part of Bomberman's identity, and modern arrangements could give those classic tunes new life while keeping the playful feeling that has always followed the series for generations. Think about it. One feature, in fact, that could quietly make the remake even stronger is allowing players to create their own arenas. Imagine building custom layouts, placing different wall patterns, adjusting power-up rules, changing victory conditions, and basically sharing whatever you create with friends online. The core gameplay already encourages some endless creativity. Giving players simple tools to design their own challenges could keep the game fresh for probably years. Or even perhaps the biggest opportunity is introducing a new generation to why Bomberman became such an icon in the first place. Modern games often become larger, more complicated, packed with systems that take hours to just basically even understand. Bomberman's always taken the opposite approach. Everything important can be learned almost immediately, but mastering the game takes practice, patience, and quick thinking. That's a rare balance, and it's one of the biggest reasons the series has remained relevant for so long. Maybe that's why the idea of a Bomberman 2 remake refuses to disappear now. People aren't asking for it because the original has always been forgotten, they're asking because great game designs don't expire. A modern remake wouldn't need to replace everything that came before it. It would simply give one of gaming's most enjoyable ideas another chance to shine with today's technology, while, of course, preserving the fast, the simple, the endlessly replayable gameplay that made Bomberman a classic from the very beginning. Sometimes the best remix isn't the one that changes everything, it's actually the one that reminds everyone why they love the original in the first place.